Hey, Shalom, Israel, Most High in Christ bless. It's your brothers from IUIC Hawaii, and here we are at it again for another episode of Rising Tidez, which is our show that we go out to the community, test our brothers and sisters on their biblical and historical knowledge, right? Find out why we do the things that we do. Shout out to our brothers in IUIC Atlanta, which is the namesake, Cuts from the Street. This is where we got the idea from. So shout out to our brothers in Atlanta camp. Brothers, keep doing your thing. We're trying to follow along. So, we're out here again today. It is the 4th of July. And I got with me today my brothers. What's your name, brother?
Soldier Thiel.
Soldier Thiel. And to my right, I've got
Soldier Zion.
Soldier Zion. And so here we are again, out in the streets, right? Trying to find out what our brothers and sisters know, hoping to edify them a little bit more with information, right? Information, that's what we're trying to bring to the people. Why do you do the things that you do? Where did it start? Where did it begin? Does it apply to you, right? Keep in mind, July 4th, 1776, our people were still in chains, right? So we are here today celebrating a custom. Does it belong to us? Does it pertain to us? I don't know. Let's find out. Remember, it's common knowledge, so I'll share this tidbit. When was Independence Day started? July 4th, 1776. We were in slavery then. Keep that in mind as we go throughout and you watch this episode of Rising Tidez. So sit back, relax. Hope you enjoy the show, and we'll be back at the end to kind of recap and talk a little bit about what we ran into today. All right, with that we say shalom.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days of the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is a constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes that would disgrace a nation of savages. There's not a nation of the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour forth a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened. The conscience of the nation must be roused. The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and the crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
Shalom, family. Today I'm here with our brother
Isaiah, right? And today we're going to talk a little bit about the festivities that's going on and what Isaiah thinks about it. So let me ask you a question. What are we here today? What are we here today for?
Independence Day.
Independence Day. What does that mean? What is the history of this celebration?
I think it's when Americans fought from the British in like 1766.
1776, right?
The date, July 4th, 1776, when America celebrates its independence, separating from Great Britain.
Independence Day in America is, America got its independence in, I want to say 17 whatever, but black people didn't get their independence till to the 1800s, so it was a whole another 100 years later till black people were fully independent.
We are out here today for what reason?
4th of July.
4th of July, 4th of July. And so that's traditionally known as Independence Day. Do you know when Independence Day was established?
No, not really. I ain't
Okay.
really history buff.
It says 4th of July today, what they say, America's independence.
Okay, in America's independence, right? What do we do typically on this day?
Barbecue, fireworks, obviously out there on the beach, have a good time for the most part, you know what I mean? Celebrate their independence from Great Britain, so America.
Just a vocabulary type word. The word independent, right? Or independence, which is the foundation of today. Do you know what that word means, or give me some understanding of that word?
I mean, as far as I know of, it's just separation, standing on your own.
Standing on your own, right? So like a dependent. What's a dependent?
Someone that requires some assistance.
Right, right. So, and on the opposite end of that, we have Independence Day, which is separating from. Standing on your own. I like those words you use.
To rely upon in a nurturing way that you cannot do for yourself. You're being depending on something or something.
Okay. And independence would mean?
That you are dependent from, or you are away from that. You are separated from that. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to rely upon anybody. You're independent. You can do you.
So separate, right?
Separate, yeah.
So how, in your own words, right? How exactly did the United States, or what were they separating from?
The British people came, left their Great Britain and England, came to the United States because they felt they were being they're persecuted their freedoms. Right. They wanted their own thing. They came over here. Right. Took over. At first, Great Britain was like, nah, y'all go do your thing, but you still supposed to submit to us. They weren't having that. Hence the reason why we had the war, to separate, saying, hey, we don't rely on you guys anymore. We're our own entity. We don't. Right. You know what I'm saying? So.
Would that be a good thing? Them separating? They was being oppressed by Great Britain, taxing and all that type of stuff. Would you say that's a good thing?
It was a good thing.
Right. And then here we are today, right? We're now free, right? Celebrating the United States independence.
Yes, we are.
How about just the word, you know what a dependent is?
A dependent? Yeah, it's like on your taxes, you claim a dependent. Okay. This is another person in your family or something like that.
Okay, so if I say I'm independent, what does that mean?
You independent, meaning your own self. You can, you know what I'm saying, you free or whatever.
Right. So today being Independence Day, what is it in observance of?
Being independent and not owned, I guess, freedom.
Okay, for who?
For everybody.
But the traditional sense of the word, like it was July 4th, 1776, someone was gaining independence from someone else. Do you know who that is?
No, not really.
Okay, so what, did we gain independence during that time?
Not at all.
What, we were still enslaved when America gained its independence?
Yes.
What do you mean by independence? What happened?
I think independence is when you have the ability to create like generational wealth and like, true freedom. And like we ain't get that at that time.
True freedom, right? True freedom from who? Who did they get true freedom from?
They got true freedom from their king, like the monarch. And then
why did they need freedom from their king?
He was oppressing them religiously, spirit, like socially, spirit, like oppressing them.
As we're celebrating their Independence Day, right? Can I ask you a question? What's your nationality?
African American.
Okay, can I ask you what the African Americans or the descendants were doing during this time period? At the establishment of this country?
Still enslaved.
We were still in slavery, right? Yeah. Still in slavery, right? What were we doing? Were we celebrating fireworks, all those type of things?
Not at all.
What were we doing?
Still picking cotton, working for the slave masters. Nobody was free for the most part. If it was, it's a very select few. But nothing changed in our world, in our little world at the time. So
you're a so-called black man or African American male, right?
Right.
So where or how would this date, if you were alive during that time, how would this day affect you?
It wouldn't.
It what?
It wouldn't really.
Why not?
Because we were still enslaved.
Because we were still enslaved.
Your question, right? What's your nationality?
I'm black, African American.
Okay, you're black, African American, right?
Nationality?
That's fine. Black national. You know, what were our people doing in 1776?
Slaves, right?
They were in slavery. Okay, so what, did we gain independence during that time?
Not at all.
What, we were still enslaved when America gained its independence?
Yes.
My question to you is, our people, we're out here celebrating Independence Day, right? But were we independent? Was our ancestors independent in that time period?
Not at all. I'm not celebrating Independence Day. I'm celebrating a day off with my homies, having a good time. That's what I'm celebrating.
No, I understand. But the bulk of our people don't know the history about these things, right?
Yeah.
So
Let me ask you this question. In the stance of independence, and understanding that we were still slaves at that time, would you say that we were dependent then or independent?
Dependent? Yeah.
We were dependent as slaves on who?
To the white folks, I guess.
To the white folks.
Right. Slave owners, masters, all of them.
What about today?
I mean, they say we independent, but it's damn near the same thing.
So let me ask you a question. If we did not gain freedom, true freedom during that time, why are we celebrating it today?
Personally, I'm not, but I think we are as part trying to be Americans and as part is unifying and not trying to add to the division. But
Not trying to have division, right? Yeah. But the whole premise of this holiday is about division, right? Independence, right? Right?
Yeah, 100%.
So why again, why are our people, because if you look around, our people are definitely celebrating the day that our oppressors gained their freedom from their oppressors, right? Does that make sense?
Same reason we celebrate Christmas and like just stuff we were taught, but
So is it safe to say that today's date doesn't really pertain to us?
No, I heard some lady say something about like September 19th, something happened for us black folks or something like that. I was just watching Facebook one day.
Okay. It is a lot of stuff going around on Facebook. We're not gonna try and dig into that because there's so much information on Facebook that we can't really validate. But we do know what you said was correct, which was that in 1776 our people were still enslaved.
I got a question for you, right? Seeing as we were not free during that time, right? Would it be? Is it a good thing that we're celebrating this today? Or are we celebrating on behalf of someone else?
I believe most are celebrating on behalf of somebody else. This is just another typical day. It's a Wednesday, you know what I mean? Like I don't have any, me personally, wouldn't have any emotional ties to think that I'm free or I'm celebrating American freedom because I know the history that we weren't, so it's kind of redundant to try to.
You don't think you're free, brother? You don't think
I
you're
don't
free?
think we're free. Like I'm not in the same concept of, you know what I'm saying? I was oppressed by Great Britain because it was different for us, you know what I mean? In my personal opinion.
Okay.
because this is their holiday. So what is our holiday? When are we going to be independent from this place?
Me and my homie, we celebrated Juneteenth, so we were good. I'm happy to be off of work. I'm happy to have day off work, chilling in Hawaii with my homies. I honestly don't care what the rest of these people are celebrating. I'm celebrating day off work, chilling with my fam and having a good time. That's what we're doing. Independence Day means nothing to me. So
today you just independent from work.
Exactly.
What should we be doing, right? What should we be doing? Do we have our own holidays and things that we should be celebrating?
maybe Kwanzaa, but I think we can establish some new.
We should establish some new ones.
Yeah, some new holidays for us.
Okay. What was our ancestors celebrating before they were taken by the slave ships?
I don't even know, man.
Where our ancestors from?
Africa.
What part?
I don't know. I gotta do the ancestry. But
Okay, so us as a people generally don't know where we come from, generally, right? But we definitely know how to celebrate our oppressors' holidays, right?
yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, right? So does this add any kind of clarity? Like, is the wheels turning? Like, why are we doing this?
It's making me think about it, and I don't really want my little brothers to be a part of it as much, you know.
Why would you not want that?
Because it's just reinforcing stuff we've been thrown at us our whole lives, and that's honestly just moral oppression, mentally, if not physically. But
That's right. Those are good answers, man.
Can you recall in the Bible where, or the first time that all nations were as one and came together, and what was God's stance on that?
I do not recall when all 18 nations, all nations came together. So,
Do you read the Bible at all?
Vaguely, not too in depth, too much. But
You're not an expert, but you know a little something.
I can. I know a little something.
All right. What does the Bible say about independence for God's people?
See, I don't want to misquote, so I'm gonna like I don't.
Summarize. You can.
Oh, I mean, I kind of want to misquote that they, you know what I mean, because I feel like I'd be digging too much, so I don't want to misquote it. So I'm gonna go with I don't know.
Okay.
Exactly. So you know what I mean.
Can I ask you, who are God's people anyway?
Supposed to be, I would say the Israelites. I mean, there's always named a different group of people, but that's why I said I don't want to quote exactly because then I don't want to misspoke. So I'm not gonna. I would say the Israelites.
Okay.
That sends God's people.
Excuse me. Who were the laws of God given to?
His disciples.
Okay, all right. How about in the time of Moses?
Yes.
Okay, all right. His disciples.
Yeah.
Whose disciples?
Jesus' disciples.
In the time of Moses?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's Old Testament.
Yeah.
You're absolutely correct. Time of Moses, it was given to Moses.
Okay, to give to?
The Israel.
Okay, Israelites. Okay, and where, do you know where they were coming from when they received those laws?
Can't recall.
Okay, let my people go, splitting of the Red Sea. Do you know where?
Egypt.
Right, we're Egypt. Okay, good.
You know, it's just not too sharp sometimes, but I get there.
Oh, no problem, not a problem at all.
Now, earlier I believe I asked maybe I didn't. I asked what your nationality was. Do you know your nationality?
All I can relate to is African American. I don't know exactly where derived from what tribe or whatnot. Just kind of summed it all. African American.
Where did African American? Where did that name come from?
I believe it was a term derived by white people when they didn't have another name to name us because they think, hey, you guys came from this continent, you got brought over here, so you're African, but you're American. So they kind of put that together, I would say.
Okay, you seem like you got a little. You're coming from a standpoint of education on the matter, right? So that's good, right? So what we do here is we actually teach our history, right, according to the Bible, and we relate it to the things that we see in today's time, right? And that's what we're gonna do here today. If you got a couple minutes, right?
All right, that's fine.
All right, so that's what we're gonna do. We'll be right back.
Douglas said the following: "What to the American slave is your 4th of July?" I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham, your boasted liberty an unholy license, your national greatness swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence, your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings with all your religious parade and solemnity are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of the United States at this very hour. Go where you may. Search where you will. Roam through all the monarchies and despotisms of the old world. Travel through South America. Search out every abuse. And when you have found the last, lay your facts by the side of the everyday practices of this nation, and you will say with me, for revolting barbarity and shameless hypocrisy, America reigns without rival.
All right, shalom, everybody. We're back again with our brother Brandon, and I've got my reader here, Soldier Ithiel. And so we asked Brother Brandon a few questions about today's date, which is July 4th, and what he understood about this particular day. So one of the questions that we asked you, Brandon, was the date. You said 1776, and you were absolutely correct, right? This was established in 1776. Now, let me ask you a question. As an African-American male, right? How would this particular date have affected either yourself or your ancestors at that time?
As far as I know, at that time, we wasn't here yet. It was we were brought here at a later date as slaves, and so as far as I know of, in 1776, we wasn't here yet. I'm sure maybe some was brought over. I don't think that early in the decades.
Okay, all right. So just for the clarification and edification, because that's the segment that we're on, the transatlantic slave trade actually began in 1619. And this is important history for us to know, right? Because as a race or nation of people, which we discussed and we'll go into a little bit later, God created 18 nations, right? So we're one of those nations. The question is, which one are we, right? Let me ask you, out of the Bible, do you know or would you be able to identify which nation you descend from?
No.
As an African American man, is it safe to say that that's not a true nationality?
No, it's just made up for the public, you know what I'm saying? Just like any race, you know what I'm saying?
Well, would you ever be able to go to a land called Africa America?
No, ain't no such thing.
What?
Ain't no such thing.
But if I was Chinese, I can go to China.
Yeah,
If I'm Hawaiian, I live in Hawaii, that makes sense, right?
yeah,
What if I was Irish and I go to Ireland, right?
that's cool.
Okay. So everything else makes sense. So everyone else has a homeland to go back to except us.
We go to Africa if we want to.
Where?
Anywhere, I guess. I don't know exactly what parts they took us from or whatever, but you know what I'm saying? If we wanted to go back, it's no problem.
That's the point, right? We don't even know where to go. That would be considered our homeland. We would just kind of be feeling around in the dark.
And you said you kind of don't really know your nationality. It's kind of like
So some of all African Americans. So I don't know particular tribes or what country off the continent of Africa that I derive from, because I think it's multiple. But me personally, I don't know, so I'm summing up to say African American for now.
Okay, all right, that sounds about right. So typically, well, are you familiar with the story of Noah?
Yeah, I got kind of get the idea.
Right, the three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Right, typically, historically, from a historical standpoint, we've been categorized as the people that come from Ham, the Africans, right? Okay. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into a book and see what the scholars actually say amongst themselves, not to us.
So the scholars know something that maybe common knowledge doesn't. So let's read something, and then I'm gonna ask you a question. Maybe you can answer, which is, so then who are we? Right? That's that's going to be the question I'm going to ask at the end of this statement we read. So then who are we? Right? Go ahead. Read this.
Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood.
So this is the flood, right? Ham is the youngest son of the three sons, right? Go ahead.
And one of 8 persons to live through the flood.
So if you remember the biblical history, God destroyed the earth with the flood waters, right? And Noah and his sons and their wives were able to survive on the ark, Noah's ark. Right? Go ahead.
He became the progenitor.
What is a progenitor? Do you know?
Don't know.
Do you know what progenitor means, brother?
I do not know what that
Progenitor is a big term, nice term for forefather, right? The person that you started from. All right.
He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes.
What did that say?
Not the Negroes.
He became the progenitor of the dark races, but what?
Not the Negroes.
Remember I asked you, so who are we, right? So if the dark races are the descendants of Ham, not the Negroes, who are we?
I don't know.
Not the Negroes.
Wait, what?
Not the Negroes.
But we're a dark race.
Not the Negroes.
What were we called at one time?
Negroes.
But the Bible dictionary, the scholars know that we aren't African.
But the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites.
So these other African countries, right? These other African tribes and peoples, they descend from Ham. But it says not the Negroes. Are we the Negroes?
I believe we are the Negroes, yeah.
We're definitely the Negroes, right?
Those are true Africans, which are black people. We know that. But it said not the Negroes. So there's something wrong with that, right? So where do we come from? So with that, so if it said the Egyptians are of a dark race of people, right? Moses brought the children of Israel from where?
Egypt.
Egypt, which we just discovered, right? This is common knowledge. Scholars know that those are black people, right? Moses, if you remember in biblical history, was actually raised in the house of Pharaoh. Were you aware of that?
I was.
Moses was an Israelite of the tribe of Levi. Did you know that?
I did.
So you did or did not?
I did.
Okay. So if Moses was raised as an Egyptian, wouldn't it be safe to say he actually looked like the people of Egypt?
No. It was stated that he looked different, sort of.
Okay. Let's get something out of the Bible now, right? Exodus chapter 4 and verse 7.
And the Lord said furthermore unto him, Put now thine hand unto thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was as leprous as snow.
As leprous as snow. You know what leprosy is?
Yeah. It was a disease that we've pretty much cured, but it turned your skin and, with sores and stuff like that.
It's similar to what Michael Jackson had, vitiligo.
Okay.
So that's leprosy of the Bible.
So Moses took it, put his hand in his shirt, and when he took it out, it turned white like snow, right? What color is Moses in the movie?
White.
So what kind of miracle is that if his white hand turned into a white hand?
I wouldn't say it's a miracle if he was already white.
I mean, maybe that's why they don't show it in the movies, right? Maybe?
Probably.
All right, let's figure it out.
Verse 7. And he said, put thy hand into thy bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh.
So his hand went from being white, he put it back in his shirt, and it turned to his other flesh, right? So it changed back to his normal color, right? Where was Moses located at?
Middle East, North
Where's Egypt?
Africa.
What did the Egyptians look like?
Black.
Did he live amongst them?
Yes, he did.
Did his hand change color?
Yeah, that's what it said.
What did he look like?
He looked black. That's what it said.
Oh, okay, all right, there we go.
So what we're showing you is that Moses actually looked like the Egyptians. He was black like the Egyptians, which is why the miracle that was performed was turning a black hand white and then black again, right? So Moses, being an Israelite, was a black man according to the Bible. That's what we're showing.
So now we got a black man that freed his people, right? And then years later they went into slavery on slave ships. Does that sound?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. A little while ago, you said, well, I kind of don't know who I am, things like that. They say this, right? So does the Bible kind of show us, paint a picture for us?
Has an idea, yeah, an outline, I would say.
Okay. All right. Well, just to let you know, the Bible identifies who you are, right? You're a child of Israel. All right.
You familiar with Moses coming out of Egypt, let my people go, cross the Red Sea? You familiar with that at all?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
And when they got into the wilderness, they was given the laws and commandments, 10 commandments, all that good stuff?
Right on.
Okay. Right. So this is, after he gave them the laws, he said, if you keep the laws of God, that you would be blessed. If you disobey the laws of God, you would be cursed. Right? Did the Israelites obey or disobey?
Disobeyed.
They disobeyed. So that means we should be able to look at these curses and identify some of the things that happened to the children of Israel, correct?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's read this one.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he hath destroyed thee.
So what is this going into? This is one of the curses that would happen to the children of Israel. We would be dependent on our oppressors for everything we need in life, whether it's food, right? Whether it's drink or water. You got housing, right? Education, nationality, religion. That's right. So we were dependent on them. But guess what? We can read now. So that means we can actually go into the book and find out what he says. All right. Now, what I want you to do is jump to verse. It said, finish the last sentence of 48.
And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
It said, until he have destroyed thee. So do we still have physical yokes of iron around our neck?
No.
But we are mentally destroyed now.
Exactly.
Which is why when we said, what's your nationality? We all say the same thing. I'm Negro, I'm black, I'm African American. But those are nothing. You said it yourself, right? Because the question we're answering is, who are we? Right? And I don't want to get too long-winded here. That's why I want to jump to this point right here. How did our ancestors, as African, and both of us, African American men, get to this side of the earth?
We're brought here.
Were we willingly brought here? Were we brought here on cruise ships? How were we brought here?
By slave ship.
By slave ship. Okay. Did you know that was in the Bible?
No.
So let's read it, right? And this all pertains to Independence Day. Don't forget the thought, people. Independence Day. Go ahead.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28 and verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
So we already know when they came out of Egypt the first time, what was their condition in the land of Egypt, the children of Israel?
They was not in, as far as I remember, my knowledge, they wasn't in good status as far as I know.
They were slaves. They actually built up the cities.
Correct. They built the Egyptian cities. Correct.
Right. Much like the slaves of America.
That's right. Exactly.
That's right. Let's keep reading.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
Now they just got out of Egypt, right? They just got out of Egypt, right? So God said, if you don't listen, right, I'm gonna send you right back to Egypt, right? All right. What were they doing in Egypt?
They were slaving.
They were slaving in Egypt. They was what?
They were building pyramids, and they were just being slaves. They were being told what to do.
That sounds like a familiar story, right? But let's read this. Let's read this.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again
Slavery.
with ships.
Wait, hold on. Typo?
With ships.
Did that say with ships?
Yes, they were ships.
With ships.
All right.
How did our ancestors get to this side of the earth?
On a boat?
Cruise boat?
No, slave boat.
Slave boat. Okay. And then what happened when we got off that slave boat?
They put us on plantains and sold us and all type of things.
And who's been able to take us out of that captivity? Was anyone in history ever allowed or able to take all of the slaves out of slavery? Any slave, any black man?
Lincoln. Oh, you mean like who unslaved us? Lincoln, as far as I know.
All right, let's read this.
How? With ships.
How?
With ships.
This is out of the Bible. Right. So we've already identified that that's the way our ancestors got here. So my question to you is, can you identify anyone else that might have happened to?
Cannot.
So, they were in Egypt slaving, right? Building the city up, right? Mm-hmm. And God said, I'll send you right back into slavery, but this time with ships. Did that ever happen to a people in history that they went into slavery with ships?
Yes, it did.
Who? Chinese?
Not Chinese, Africans.
Arabs?
Not the Arabs. Africans. We came over in ships.
The so-called Africans came over in ships, right?
Yes, we did.
Let's just see if that's maybe that's a coincidence, right? Let's see if there's any other characteristics that we can identify with.
By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
Did we ever migrate back to our homeland?
No.
Huh?
No, we did not.
We did not. Where are we today?
All over the United States and Central and South America.
Right, in the same places we were taken by ships, right?
Yes.
Okay. Finish reading that.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
Oh, your friends.
Your enemies.
Okay.
For bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So no man will be able to buy you, like redeem you out of this, right? And when you said we're still here, right? People have tried, Martin Luther King, all the greats, right? They've tried, right? But we're still here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we are.
Okay. Now, before I ask you a question about God's people, right? Mm-hmm. Right? Did this happen to who is this happening to?
You talking about now time or back then?
Back then.
Back
this
then
was
it was
a
God.
prophecy. This was a prophecy, right?
It was God's people. It was happening to that they were being persecuted and being enslaved. So he brought them out of bondage. So that's back then, according to the Bible.
Okay. Can we identify with any of these things?
That we can.
Independence Day. We are in the land that is not our homeland, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
So it says, thou shalt see it, your homeland, no more again. Has that happened?
No.
So just to be clear, we're still in the lands where we were carried away captive, right? In a sense, we could never return to our nation or country or land of origin.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. That's what this is saying. That's what Moses is saying. Read it again from the top.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
Thou shalt see it, your homeland, no more again. Go ahead.
And there,
when you get off those cargo slave ships, go ahead.
Ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen.
So it says we shall be sold unto our enemies for slave men and slave women. Is this not historical fact? We're just reading history, right?
That's right.
So, but this is not a history book in the sense of a school textbook. This is the Bible. This is the Holy Bible we're reading, which is identifying who did Moses go to redeem? Who did Moses go to bring out of Egypt?
Biblically,
Israelites.
Israelites. But this is prophetic, which we have now identified because the Israelites didn't go into slavery by way of slave ships, right? They walked into Egypt. Correct. They walked out of Egypt. Correct. So who is this identifying if you were to understand history today? Who would this be identifying or unique to?
African Americans.
But what does the Bible call them?
I forgot the term he used.
Get Deuteronomy 1:1.
1:1. Go with.
We're just going to get from the beginning of the The book, just to clarify it.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 1 and verse 1. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel.
To who?
All Israel.
So these are the words that were spoken to all Israel, or the children of Israel, the Israelites. So if I get into the 28th chapter of the same book and I read the description of things that were to take place, or the prophecy of things that were to take place, that you and I both identified as only happening to one group of people, what would that make them? Because African and American are two different white names. Remember the question was, who are we then? Who does the Bible? What?
Israelite.
That's right, my brother. That's right, my brother. So according to the Bible, the so-called black man, the Hispanic man, and the Native American or Native Indian man are the biblical Israelites.
But let's go find out about this independence thing, right? This independence, right? So we're here celebrating our oppressors' independence, because the Bible called them our enemies, right? Yeah. Our enemies, right? So let's find out what God says about that. You got me 1 Corinthians? Give me 2 Corinthians 6 and 17. We're gonna find out what we should be doing, right, as the children of God, as the children of Israel, today in America, right? You got that?
2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17. Wherefore come from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord.
Now, being separate, is that looked upon as a good thing or a bad thing today?
A bad thing.
Hold on. What are we celebrating today?
Being independent from British. Americans are.
What do you mean by independent?
Separate to be.
Oh, okay. So that's cool, right? We can celebrate that today, right? Right. What does God tell us to do?
It says to be separate from your oppressors.
Okay. All right. So it says, come out from among them and be ye separate, right? Mm-hmm. So how is it that we can be separate, right? Give me 3 and 31. All right. We're gonna show it out the Bible, right? So that way it's not my words, right? You can see it for yourself if you want to, right? Remember, be ye separate, right? Now, if we look around today, a lot of our people are celebrating the things in a spirit of unity, right? The spirit of unity with everybody else. But the scriptures tell us to come out from among her and be separate, right?
If we have identified that this origin of this holiday, 1776, right, is not necessarily pertaining to our people, because during the time it was originated, we were in slavery. Okay. Read that.
Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 31. Envy thou not the oppressor, and choose none of his ways.
How many?
None of his ways.
So, can I just ask you a pretty straightforward and blunt question? How much sense does it make to partake in a festivity or holiday or party where your ancestors were still in a place of bondage?
It doesn't make much sense. I guess, I think of me being here and independence is, okay, it's a time for me to celebrate with family, celebrate with friends, marking the independence of the country that I'm in now, which is America. And so, granted, and the bondage that they put my people through, as you established, my Israelite people through, is still a matter of celebration. And so that's what I'm celebrating. But, you raised a really great point on that.
What should we be doing out here?
I wouldn't say celebrating in the sense of how they're celebrating right now, because that has.
What sense does it make that we're celebrating the independence, the separation, right, of our oppressors from their previous oppressors? What sense does that make?
Makes none whatsoever.
Why do we do it?
It's a tradition, probably passed down.
What tradition?
Or tradition from families passed down to say, hey, you're one of us.
What were we doing in 1776?
Definitely slaving. We were definitely on the fields, picking cotton, doing everything else.
So what tradition was passed down? Who passed it down to us?
Slave masters.
So if you're an Israelite, brother, the question is, what does all this have to do with you?
Nothing.
Nothing at all. Absolutely right. So that's what we out here to show our people, that observing the customs, observing the traditions that we see out here that don't particularly pertain to us is not what God would have us to do, right? The question is, what would he have us to do? Give me Revelations 18 and 4. Let's read this. This is the end of the Bible. Notice we're going all the way to the back. It don't get no more newer than this. Read this.
It's the book of Revelation, chapter 18 and verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people.
Do what?
come out of her, my people.
Come out of her, my people. We just identify who the my people is. Us. Come out of her. Go ahead.
That ye be not partakers of her sins.
Right, so that we be not partakers of her sins. This has nothing to do with our people, right? And at the time this was instituted, we were in slavery. We were in bondage. So it makes no sense for us to be a part of it. There's people out here frying things that are unlawful for us to eat. There are people out here dressed in a manner that's unlawful for us to be, right? There are people out here acting and reveling in a manner that's unlawful for us, the my people that God says we are. So this is what we out here to show our people who they actually are in the Bible and what God commands us to do, which is come out of her, right? And return to your true culture, your true history, your true nationality, which is the words of God. Does that make sense, brother?
Makes sense to me.
You have any questions?
No, not really. You just made, you know what I'm saying, good sense. You know what I'm saying? That's all I need to go by.
And that's all we're here to do. That's all we're here to do, is to raise your level of thinking, to raise questions in your mind. Why do I celebrate what I celebrate, right? And then the question was, who are you? So my brother, you are an Israelite. You are God's chosen people. And the Bible said, God said, come out and be separate. And so partaking in an event that really has nothing to do with you doesn't make much sense, but it's important for us to learn these things because we were never taught them. And that's what we're here to do, right? So do you have any questions, brother?
No.
Any final statement?
Appreciate you.
All right, shalom, Israel. We back. Pray that you guys enjoyed this show, enjoyed this episode. We was able to speak to a few folks today. Hopefully, Lord willing, they was edified. Lord willing, some of you folks was edified as home as well. So we learned something that July 4th, 1776 had nothing to do with our people whatsoever. So it's you really like an idiot out here celebrating this stuff. So Rizing, what did you gather anything? Anything come up for you that stuck out, or any closing words for the people?
Envy not thy oppressor and choose none of his ways. Because we understand we out here assimilated with this culture. And we're ignorant to our own culture. And the Bible is our history. It's our culture. It's our heritage. We got to come back to that thing. Because we out here are lost people.
That's right. So what do you got? Any final departing words for the people that maybe they can just consider as they think about this show they just watched?
Just consider your heritage. A lot of our people are walking around thinking that we've already got it, we've already been established, we are free, and that's not the case. So just take a deep dive into your heritage, not a DNA test. Deep dive into your fathers, right? Ask who you are, right? Think about these things, and you'll be surprised what you come up with when you go into the Bible to look for it.
That's right. I just want to leave you folks with a little bit of information, right? And take it how you will. Google this stuff for yourself. Do your own research. We're not bringing out anything that's just secret knowledge. This is just information that's out there, like the brother just said. Dive into it and really try and do a little bit of studying, right? So the definition of the word independent, right? Requiring someone or something for financial, emotional, or other support, right? A person who relies on another, right? For financial support. A child, a minor. Right? The word independent, it simply means the fact of not depending on others, being self-supporting and self-governing. That's not our people at all. We are not self-sustaining. We are not self-governing. We rely on everyone else. So based on the Independence Day, just a little, fun fact, I guess. Did you know that, our people have fought in pretty much every major war, right? We fought in the American Revolutionary War, and actually about 4% of the Patriot Army was black men. A lot of our people don't even know that, right? So even still, we were fighting with our enemies to keep us slaves, right? We was broken then, we're broken today, right? And this is what you got to understand, is that America went to war. They went to physical war to gain their independence from their oppressors, right? But God calls us to peace with all men, so it's not a physical war that he's called us to take part in. He said, what did he say? By the renewing of your mind. He said, what did it say in Romans 12:1? Be not conformed, right, to this world. And that's what we got to understand. We got to come out from the customs that we've learned and fight a mental and spiritual war now. It's a spiritual war for your mind, right? You got to wake up. Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you are the true biblical Israelites, and it's important that we come back to our laws, statutes, and commandments and not continue to rely on the people that's put us into bondage to set us free. You got to do your own research. You got to do your own digging. So I want to leave you with this thought by Assata Shakur. She's a very famous poet, a great thinker, a revolutionary mind. She said, nobody in the world, nobody in history has ever gotten their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the people who were oppressing them. Meaning to say, we're not going to be able to sit down and beg our oppressors for freedom. We're going to have to take it, meaning by educating ourselves and by keeping the laws of God, returning to our true culture and heritage so that He can fight for us. So with that, Israel, we say shalom, Most High in Christ bless. Until our next episode of Rising Tides, be strong in the Lord and the power of His might. Shalom.
Shalom. This is Bishop Nathaniel of Israel United in Christ. Please subscribe to our YouTube channels. Stay up to date with our latest events, music, and classroom lessons. IUIC plans to continue visiting different countries where this gospel has not been preached before. IUIC needs your help in pushing this truth. So join us, subscribe to our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and podcasts, and stay up to date with us. For more information, please visit www.israelunite.org.